Gemini new moon on June 3rd, 2019 is an excellent opportunity to take your vision for 2019 and supersize it. Make it bigger, make it bolder, and really hone in on some specific wording for what you want to create in the second half of 2019. In this video, I'm going to talk about why that's so, talk about the numerology and the astrology for this new moon, and also give you a few tips on how to best take advantage of that energy to have the best second half of the year that you possibly can. So let's get started by just talking about the general energy of this new moon, and then we're going to add some additional factors that give an additional flavor or coloring to the energy, and then we'll talk about how to best take advantage of the energy. So for starters, it's a new moon, so just like at any new moon, it's a time when we're experiencing new beginnings, we're in a new cycle, we're planting new seeds, and so that's a general theme. And then since this is happening in Gemini, it's focused around the Gemini areas, which some of those include curiosity, being social, it includes wanting to get out and explore your local environment. Gemini is about movement and travel, and especially the areas that are right around you locally. It's also about learning, sharing information, these kinds of topics. Gemini rather, is an air sign, so it has to do with this communication, this learning, this intellectual quality, and it's also mutable, which means it's very changeable, very dynamic, and very open, very curious. So with the new moon, you're planting seeds, setting intentions for both this current lunar cycle and then also for the next 6 months. So rounding out the rest of 2019 up until we have the Gemini full moon, which is going to be on December 11th and 12th, depending on where you are in the world. And so really this new moon is a great opportunity to envision and be able to clarify, because of Gemini's focus on your mental aspect and your verbal aspect, really put into words what your vision is for 2019. To understand more about this new moon, we want to look at the ruler of the moon, which is Mercury, because Mercury rules the sign of Gemini. And Mercury is the messenger planet. It's the planet of communication, travel, getting a message across. And Mercury is actually in the sign of Gemini at the time of this new moon. It's in the late degrees of Gemini. It's at 27 degrees. And so Mercury has been making a journey through Gemini already by the time we get to this new moon. It's been in Gemini since May 21st. And at the time that Mercury entered Gemini, the sun was there too. And it's called a cazimi. When the sun and another planet meet in the sky is called a cazimi in astrology. And basically with Mercury and the sun, that means that it's really shining a bright light on our mind, and it's illuminating a new insight or a new amount of clarity or a new like aha moment, epiphany about, something in that area of the sky and in the area of your life that is the Gemini. So once the sun and Mercury entered Gemini on May 21st, there was this clarity, this moment, and since then Mercury has been traveling through Gemini, and it's been what astrologers call combust, which means that in the sky you can't see Mercury because it's traveling too close to the sun right now. And so what that represents for us is that from that moment when Mercury and the sun were aligned, there was this clarity, but then once the Mercury is traveling near the sun, it's not fully visible, and you're still kind of processing through and maybe understanding what that clarity was about. But by the time we get to this new moon on June 3rd, Mercury has gotten far enough away from the sun so that it's now visible in the sky again, and symbolically that represents that this clarity is more easily available to you again, this mental this ability to distinguish, clearly what your thoughts are and clearly how you would want to articulate them. And so that's one thing that we know about this new moon, is that because Mercury is its ruler, Mercury is in a strong position, being in its home sign of Gemini, and also being separate enough from the sun so that it's visible in the sky. And another thing about this Mercury is that it has recently become separated from the planet Neptune and the planet Jupiter in some more challenging aspects known as a square and an opposition. Mercury squared Neptune on Wednesday, May 29th, and opposed Jupiter on Thursday, May 30th. And this is another part of this energy of the new moon, is that these mutable signs of Pisces, which is where Neptune is, and Sagittarius, which is where Jupiter is, are very involved with the new moon. So as Mercury was moving through the sign of Gemini, it was getting squared by Neptune and opposed by Jupiter. But now that it's reached this 27-degree point, it's moved past all of that. And now the sun and the moon are going to follow along in those Mercury footsteps. And so that's the next thing that I want to talk about, is just more around that Neptune and Sagittarius and how they're engaging with the Gemini energy, because the Jupiter in Sagittarius, the Neptune in Pisces, the Mercury, the sun, and the moon in Gemini, those are all mutable signs that those planets are in. And so it's this activation of this mutable energy. And let's talk more specifically about what that means for us. One of the things that's going on is that this movement of planets in Gemini is activating a major aspect for 2019, which is the square between Jupiter in Sagittarius and Neptune in Pisces. These planets had an exact square back in January when they were both moving direct, and then Jupiter turned retrograde back in April, I believe, and is now about to approach another square with Neptune. That will be on June 16th. And then they're going to square again in September. And so it's an ongoing theme this year. And Jupiter in Sagittarius, Jupiter is at home in Sagittarius. It's very strong there. Jupiter, the planet of optimism, expansion, of good luck, of fortunate, of saying yes to whatever your heart desires, and really going for what you want, is strong in Sagittarius, which is very resonant with those qualities as well. And the Neptune in Pisces, Neptune is a planet that spiritualizes things. It's a planet that goes beyond physical reality into the spiritual dimension and into our ability to create our reality through the story and the vision that we create about it, how we can use our imagination and our creative abilities to envision whatever we desire and then be able to create that. So Neptune, it's a planet that really enhances our ability to see beyond what is and imagine something totally different that's never been before. And so this square between the Jupiter in Sagittarius and the Neptune in Pisces is combining this boldness and this courage and this go-get-it nature of Jupiter with the Neptune qualities in Pisces about creating this vision of imagining beyond what is and being able to decide what story you want to manifest that could be totally different than what you're currently experiencing. And because it's a square, it means that there's a tension. So a square can sometimes be a challenging aspect in astrology, but it always is something that forces a decision or that forces action or forces change in a way. And so when Jupiter and Neptune are meeting in this square aspect, to me it feels like we're being inspired strongly or maybe forced by circumstances or internally really strongly compelled to decide, what we're going to really go for as far as this big vision that these two planets are wanting us to see through this year. As I talked about before, Gemini is an air sign, and it's about, what we're thinking about, what we're communicating about. And so because it's getting a new beginning in that Gemini energy, it's a new beginning in how we're thinking about things. And because it has a relationship with this Neptune, Jupiter energy, it's a new way of looking at our big, bold goal that we're shooting for this year. Since we have this Jupiter in Sagittarius that only happens once every 12 years, it's an opportunity to really go big and go for it with what we want to manifest. The challenge with the Gemini energy is that Gemini, because it is such a curious sign and it can be tempted to go off in a lot of different directions potentially, it can sometimes get easily distracted. There can be challenges with the ability to focus, and that is represented by this opposition energy with Jupiter, where Jupiter would really like to see you focus on something and go for it. The Gemini energy, with that energy, you may find it too easy to get distracted or to try to do too many things at once, or to maybe get so distracted by what's going on in your immediate environment with all the little things that you need to take care of that you don't make the time to really tune in and articulate for yourself what is your big vision and really spend the time necessary to write out like a vision statement around that. And so that's one thing you want to watch out for at this new moon, is to allow yourself to engage in the Gemini energy of curiosity and playfulness and gathering information, but don't let it go too far over the top to where you're scattering your focus too much and you're not able to really gather that information, but then synthesize it into a clear statement of what you want to create. Because I think that's your ultimate goal at this new moon, is to really put into words in one way or another what you're wanting to manifest for the second half of the year. So let's talk a little bit about the numerology of this new moon. There's two numbers that are getting highlighted strongly with this new moon, the number 3 and the number 9. So as we know, the new moon's happening on June 3rd, and it's also happening at 12 degrees, which if you add the 1 and the 2 together and reduce to a single digit as we do in numerology, then that's a 3 as well. And the 3 is significant because 2019, the universal year of 2019, the number is a 3 for numerology. 2019 is a 3 universal year. And so the number 3 is a very important number for the entire year in numerology. And number 3 is also very similar to Gemini energy and also to the Jupiter and Sagittarius energy, because number 3 is the child number in numerology, and it's about the enthusiasm that children have for what they desire, and how children are they just want what they want. They're not inhibited about it. They don't second guess what they want. They just declare it and they will go for it and, seek to have it in whatever way they can, until they get conditioned by society to not do that. That's kind of the nature of children, is just to uninhibitedly be themselves and pursue what they desire. And those are some of the qualities that we're invited to explore in 2019, is reawakening that child part of us, the part of us that wants to play, that wants to explore, that wants to connect with others, and that wants to just express ourselves in an uninhibited way and create and live from that place. And so that, of course, is similar to the Gemini energy as well, of exploration, creativity, and curiosity. And so with this number 3 energy strongly highlighted, it is like a new beginning at this new moon around what you're really being inspired to create or express in this childlike, uninhibited way in 2019. So the other number being highlighted around the time of this new moon is the number 9. And the first way it's being highlighted is that June is a 9 month in numerology. If you add the 6 for the month of June, June's the 6th month, plus the 3 for 2019 being a 3 universal year, you get a 9. And so the 9 in numerology is the final digit of the single digit sequence, and it looks like a person with a big head on their shoulders that's looking back at the other numbers behind it in sequence. And so it represents the accumulated wisdom of the numbers that came before it. And the other way that the 9 is being activated is that the ruler of the full moon, of the new moon, Mercury, is at 27 degrees, which is also a 9. 2 plus 7 equals 9. And then Neptune as well, that we talked about before, it's going to be at 18 degrees, which 1 plus 8 is 9. So that's another example of the 9 activation. And I think it's really interesting, this number 9 activation happening in June, because it means that July is going to be a 1 month in numerology. So it will be a new beginnings, new energy, new cycle month. And so we have this number of completion and culmination and changing over, ending of one cycle, beginning of a new cycle, right here at the midpoint of the year, right when we have this Gemini new moon, where there is this opportunity to clarify a vision for the rest of 2019. And then we're going to get that number 1 month in July, where we can really step into and start manifesting that new energy. And in the astrology in July, we're going to have a couple of powerful eclipses as well. And so that's going to really be bringing in a new energy. Also, we're going to have the Cancer solar eclipse and the Capricorn full moon eclipse, lunar eclipse. And so this is a time that is very changeable. Like I talked about before, this mutable energy of the mutable signs, Pisces, Sagittarius, Gemini, is strongly highlighted. And mutable signs are all about the change between 2 seasons. They're the signs that happen at the end of one season, the beginning of another. Gemini happens at the end of the spring, the beginning of the summer in the northern hemisphere, etc. And so this number 9 is a similar way of it being activated, is the end of one numerology cycle right before the beginning of another. And so really this Gemini new moon and this month of June 2019, it's this opportunity to really culminate your vision of what you want to create for the rest of the year, but also to understand that there's a lot of new energy that's going to be coming in July. And so while you can gain a lot of clarity and you can articulate this for yourself, just understand that it's maybe not the best time to fully plan out exactly what you want to have happen for the rest of the year, because in July there's going to be some pretty big shifts most likely, and some new things coming in that will help to give you another perspective and bring some more opportunities for change and growth and evolution into your life. The day before this new moon, on June 2nd, there is an exact trine between Venus at 23 degrees of Taurus and Pluto at 23 Capricorn. And so this happening the day before the new moon, it's one of the most exact aspects happening around the time of the new moon. Venus is our relationships, it's what we really value. Pluto is about deep and powerful transformation, it's about death and rebirth and the phoenix rising out of the ashes. So I think that how this relates to the new moon is that your relationships with others, your ability to communicate in that Gemini way and connect and receive information and gather ideas from others is really highlighted. There's potential for powerful connection with other people at this time. And then also Venus rules what we really value and our sense of our own value. And this harmonious connection of the trine with Pluto is really helping you dig deep and look deep within yourself in that Pluto way and really come to a new understanding of what you really value, which is perfect right before this Gemini new moon, because then you're going to have that activation of the sun and the moon in the new moon in Gemini that's going to help you articulate it and communicate about it. And so really, like, your interaction with others around the time of this new moon is going to be helpful in generating ideas and maybe having these powerful conversations in your relationships with others or gaining wisdom from other people at this time is really going to be spotlighted at the time of the new moon as well. Another aspect that's happening around the time of this new moon that's really supportive for taking your inspired ideas and really grounding them into reality is the sextile between Neptune in Pisces and Saturn in Capricorn. This is similar to the Jupiter-Neptune square because it's also an aspect that's kind of a theme for 2019 because it's happening 3 different times in the year, at the beginning, the middle, and towards the end of the year. And so this aspect goes exact on June 18th, so around the time of the full moon, but it's starting to form in the sky around the time of the new moon. And so we have Saturn, the planet of boundaries, limitations, of the tangible, of the practical, the physical, and then Neptune, this otherworldly energy of the spiritual, the non-physical, the imagination, the ability to create a new story, a new vision for your life that's totally different than what's already manifested. But then the harmonious connection between those 2 planets is helping you actually use that Saturn energy of grounding and practicality and being able to really tangibly manifest and applying it to that Neptune and allowing you to be able to create something that's bigger than you would otherwise, because you can see with the Saturn how to really give detail and structure and practicality to what may seem, if it was just Neptune acting alone, as this really exciting, big, juicy vision, but that you have no idea on Earth how to actually take action on. Saturn's going to give you practical insight on how to go about it. So now let's talk about manifesting with the moon and what this new moon is good for, what it's not as good for, how to take best advantage of the energy of this Gemini new moon. So this new moon, it's going to be really good for gathering information, especially through your communication with other people. We talked about that Venus and Pluto connection, activating the transformative ability of relationships to help you get clear on what you really desire, what you really value. It's going to be a great time for putting to words what you want to manifest for the rest of 2019. There's the activation of all this communication and intellectual energy with the Gemini and the Mercury. So it's going to be great for putting pen to paper and really writing out what you feel inspired about right now, and making your vision, your, however you write out what you want, your statement of what you want to manifest, making it bigger, making it bolder, making it, even greater than what you might have let yourself conceive of before, because you have that energy of Jupiter and that energy of Neptune coming together with the Gemini. And so that's what you're going to be feeling, perhaps driven to do. Now, what the new moon is not as good for, I would say, is going ahead and taking massive action on that vision. We have Mars entering into a challenging aspect with the Saturn and Pluto conjunction in Capricorn. Mars is in Cancer right now, so it's opposing that buildup of energy in Capricorn, and Mars is the planet of action and drive and ambition. And Mars is not as comfortable in Cancer either. It's a water sign. It's a different kind of energy than what Mars really usually enjoys being in. So finding the motivation, finding the drive, finding the desire to take massive action on what you're writing about and articulating for yourself may not be there at this time. It may be kind of challenging. So, like always, but especially now, you want to just trust your inspiration. And if you really feel like taking action, of course, go ahead and do it. But if you really don't feel like it, then trust that and honor that one. The other thing to realize is that as you're articulating your vision, also realize that this isn't the best time for making a really strict long-term plan and scheduling, exactly what you're going to be doing for the rest of the year to manifest your vision, because it's the 9-month this month and we have those eclipses coming up next month. There's going to be some shifts and changes that are going to happen in the next month. So wait until, like the end of July to really firm up your plans for the rest of the year, because we're in this mutable season of dynamic change and things shifting. So, do a lot of thinking, do a lot of planning on paper, but hold off on really scheduling or like booking plane tickets and, reserving hotel rooms or whatever, like making concrete plans for what exactly you're gonna do and when may not be the best thing at this time. And then I've got a tip for you about leveraging the energy of the new moon. Because it's in Gemini, because there's a strong number 3 activation, you really want to let yourself leverage that childlike part of yourself. Let yourself be playful, let yourself be creative, have fun imagining new possibilities for yourself. Have fun letting yourself imagine what you could create that you've never created before. Let yourself tap into that Neptune quality, which is the imagination, which is the unbounded playground for you to think about what would be fun, what would spark joy for you. And my other tip with working with the Gemini energy for this new moon is to trust your ability to put things into words at this time. Gemini is all about how we communicate. It rules language. This is an activation of Mercury, the messenger planet. And so take time to do some writing. I think it's going to be really powerful for you at this time. And you may find that at the least it gives you clarity. It helps you hone in and focus on what you're really wanting at this time. And at the best, it serves as a manifesting tool. Sometimes writing something down can be a magical act that allows you to focus enough so that something is able to shift in your reality right away, just from that exercise of taking pen to paper and putting it into words. So that's it for the Gemini new moon coming up on June 3rd. I hope that you have a wonderful new moon. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Hit subscribe if you'd like to see more of my videos. I'm planning to keep doing videos for the new moon and the full moon. As I feel inspired, I'll probably do other types of videos, but at the least, that's what I plan to do for the foreseeable future. So if you enjoyed this video, I'd love to have you back around for future videos. Thanks so much for watching. Bye for now.